Okay, go ahead, John. You can start the meeting now, John.
Okay, do we need to take attendance?
Yep. I'm just going to call out everyone I see. Alexis Kim.
Here.
Brian Backus.
Here.
Clark Henry.
Here.
Dart Strayer. Dart, I saw him.
Oh, here. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Councilwoman Denise Murphy McGrath.
Good morning, everyone.
Isma Alam.
Here.
Chairman Delarada.
Present?
Josh Hawley. I see him. Kevin Walsh.
Here.
Who's joining? Is live stream you, Dennis?
No, I'm here.
Okay. And Michelle Martinelli.
Here.
Stan Pominski.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
And is it Paul Briggs on the phone? Who's on the phone?
Paul Briggs.
Paul
Yes.
Briggs. Awesome. Okay.
Laura, Josh is here too. Sorry, couldn't get to my mute button fast
No,
enough.
that's fine. I saw you on there.
Okay, are there any public concerns?
I just double checked my email and I haven't gotten any requests to attend the meeting today.
All right, and that brings us to the minutes of October 30th. Are there any changes or additions to those minutes?
I'll move that the minutes be adopted.
I'll second. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Are there any
Aye.
opposed? And that carries unanimously. I don't think we have the November minutes yet, right?
Well, that was the November
Oh, that
meeting.
was, okay.
Yeah.
I need to abstain. I thought so. So I have to abstain from those because I was not at those. I wasn't at that meeting, unfortunately. All right, so that brings us to the 2021 schedule.
Yeah, sorry. I attached it to the packet. It's pretty standard. The only thing that isn't on the schedule yet is early voting, which I don't think has been announced by New York State yet. So I think we're able to fit in our meetings prior to the potentially scheduled town board meetings on every month except for November again. That's just a funny month. So we just already scheduled the November meeting for October 29th based on past schedules. That seems to be like where it has to go. And I don't know if anybody had taken a look or had any questions on it.
Nope, looks like we're all still on the first Friday of the month, generally.
Yep. At 8:30.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll accept that, post it. If you hear anything else from you guys.
That should work. And the Knott Street area improvement concept plans.
So we approved those at the last town board meeting. We had RFP out to, I think, 6 or 7 different engineering firms. NJ was the most competitive, best value. And so we awarded that at the last meeting. And what they're currently doing right now is putting together a schedule that they'll send to us with, the timing for getting the concept plans to us. And probably like the first step that everyone wants to pay attention to is once we get the schedule going and the supervisor signs that, there's probably going to be like a kickoff meeting, which they want to do about a week into the schedule. They want to just have some rough just concepts that we've kind of talked about in the past for people to comment on, and then really just gather all the information that they can at that meeting and then go from there with the developing some of the concept plans. Sorry. One of the things that I wanted to run by you guys was a couple members of the planning board have been paying attention to this. And it certainly as a available resource if we would want to run the concept plans through the planning board and allow people to, comment on them through that kind of forum, because they are pretty good about working with the public through virtual. I expect that most of this would be through virtual back and forth. And Patrick McPartland, has already, said that he's happy to be a project lead on this project if we want. So I just thought I'd put that out there. The schedule is forthcoming. There'll be a kickoff meeting. And if we want, the planning board is offered to be any help that you need on it.
Very well. That sounds like a good idea. I don't see why we wouldn't use them as a resource. And then it looks like that brings us to the resolutions and, of course, the former barber shop. I don't think we had enough information on that the last meeting, Laura, because a lot of the board members had to miss my committee meeting due to an executive session. But why don't you take us through that?
Sure, I will bring up the plans on my screen. So this is the, hold on. This is we call it the Knott Street kind of co-op plaza. And this is kind of the interior. Let's look at an exterior one here. I'll bring it up on here. Sorry, give me 1 second. So, this is the Knott Street Plaza, Co-op Plaza, and right on the corner where Lang's Pharmacy is, Lang's just went through the planning board to make some changes to his entrances and stuff. He lives on this corner here, right here. This is Lang's. Well, works on this corner here. Mm-hmm. And there's also a barber shop that kind of faced Knott Street and a salon that faced Crescent Clifton Park Drive over here, and they kind of wrap around where Lang's Pharmacy is. Lang's Pharmacy sits right on this corner here, if you guys can see my cursor. And so this plan is to combine those two spaces and put in a restaurant. They would have an entrance both on Knott Street and on Clifton Park Crescent, so they're using both the entrances for both businesses. There's a slight grade difference between the two areas, and so there's stairs between the two grades. And then I know there's some questions about ADA accessibility. I believe the building inspectors will double check all of these things, but both of these entrances are at grade, and he's got an ADA available bathroom. So I believe per building code, the building inspectors will double check that it is ADA compliant, even though that there's a grade change between the two different parts to the restaurant. And so he did a presentation at the public hearing, and he's really more than happy to answer any of you guys' questions. He can talk about it way more than I can talk about it, but he's got a bar area here with a reclaimed bar that he found that has like antique wood and very high-end, super cool bar.
Do you know how big of a bar, Laura? How many seats approximately, or is he not that detailed?
No, I think it's in his details here. Apologize, I was not prepared to talk about it. Let me just grab my planning board stuff here.
Or it was 10.
I think it's more than that.
No, I thought it was 10.
10?
I don't know. I watched planning board. That's what I thought he said.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, Jean, I think you're right. And Denise, there's 10 seats shown in this here, so.
All right.
And then I think it's like.
I think it's 10 and 24.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. He's actually got, it goes. So his hours of operation, 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thursdays, Mondays through Thursdays, Fridays 3 to 11, Saturdays 9 to 11, Sundays 9 to 10. He's trying to open the restaurant Oh, go ahead.
What's the name of it?
He's called it the Broken Inn. It's a combination of his children's names put together. He
Okay.
lives not very far from here. He's very excited to be.
Okay, so it's not a chain or anything like that.
No, nope.
All right.
He owns this Comedy Works Club in Saratoga Springs and the State Room in Albany. His experience, his family has been running restaurants since forever. He works. He had said it, Kevin, jump in here if I'm missing something, that like he also retains he makes a point of pride to retain his employees. He's had employees working for him in the restaurant business for, what did he say, like 20 years or something, which is really unusual. He tries to be super respectful, and he retains his employees as a point of pride. And I think he'd really like the opportunity of being able to have a business within like walking distance of his house.
Well, it sounds like more of a restaurant than a bar. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think that's his. So, and I had a couple of people who were asking, like, yes, there's more restaurant seats than bars and seats, and they were like, who wants to open up a restaurant during COVID times? But he's really focusing on his food. And he expects that even if he can't have people inside the building, he wants to cook high quality food for people and actually create his own delivery so that you wouldn't have to use Melio. Like pizza places do that. They have their own delivery people. I think he wants to have his own delivery people so that they don't have to pay extra delivery fees, and they can be a good source of food for the surrounding community. And then, these windows popped up throughout COVID where restaurants were trying to kind of section out where people could come get food without actually walking into the building. And he's also planned for that for as long as it's needed. And then he would like to kind of change that area to a like ice cream gelato takeout window in the summer, which would also be cool.
If I may jump in, so the biggest concerns that the planning board expressed, including myself, was lighting, being intrusive in the neighborhood with any lighting, noise, which could come along with that type of a business when people exiting the restaurant or bar area. Signage, making sure the signage is a good fit, and that's something we're already working on with the applicant. And the biggie on my list is parking, because it's considered a mall or complex. He's able to have reduced parking and share parking. So we asked the applicant to firm up, give us a sketch and actually identify as many parking spots that he's feels that he can utilize. As the last thing we want is the town board or the planning board to approve this and then get field complaints from the other businesses that they're losing their parking as a result of this restaurant. So that's the things that we're working through right now.
But Kevin, you already approved this.
No, we recommended that you guys approve the special use permit. We didn't approve it.
You didn't approve the whole project. You just want us to do special
we still
use
got to do
permit.
site plan if you guys pass it back to us.
Yeah. Okay.
So of course, if we approve the special use permit, it still goes back to the planning board for the final.
Correct.
Okay.
Resolve all those issues. Yep.
Yeah.
Or potential issues.
What are your major downsides besides parking, Kevin? Is there anything that sticks out to you that would
Well, to me personally, it's just parking. I think we can come through all the lighting and the signage, and the building inspectors will ensure that it's ADA compliant and and has all the correct. I guess it doesn't require a sprinkler system, is what I'm hearing. So I think it's pretty much parking is a real biggie.
And what are some of Gail's concerns, Gail King's?
Gail King, I think her concern, one of the concerns I believe is just whether it fits, because there is residents,
Right.
nearby in the residential neighborhood. As you know, she took a residential building and we all approved conversion to a mixed use. So the whole area, to be a full capability could all be a mixed use area on the backside of the co-op there. So I think that's her primary concern. Laura might have gotten some other concerns about the speed at which the project is moving. I'm not sure. I'd have to let Laura speak about that. But I think the data shows that we're treating everybody the same over there from a special use permit application process.
Yeah, no, the town board definitely heard from her about the speed of this compared to the speed of how her project proceeded.
Yeah, I double checked on that because you did share that with me. And between the time that she presented her case to the time that it went to the town board was very similar, if not faster. And the town board took action on her special use permit at the same meeting that we held the public hearing on. So I would say, if anything, the speed on this one is slightly slower than the town board's review of her special use permit.
Now, he says his hours of operation are 3 to 10, but that's not binding, is it, Kevin? I mean, couldn't he stay open
Well,
till 2 o'clock in the morning?
I'd always defer to legal, but I think we have the opportunity to set that as a condition in our approval. So,
Okay.
and if that's a concern, we'd love to hear from you guys and the public on that. And and if that's something that's really important, we'll make sure we do it. Or I think the town board would also have the opportunity, if they approved a special use permit, to condition it like they have others in the past.
I think we do.
Now, let's say that there was a bar there open until midnight or 1. There's really no residences above or on the side of it, right? Isn't it commercial, or maybe there's a couple apartments above it?
No, I believe there's a Crescent Ave. The nearest house is across the street on Crescent, and obviously around the backside is those mixed, Gale
Right.
mixed use, and there's rental apartments there. Remember, there's 2 entrances on the front and on the side, so you probably would see some traffic possibly going around the corner there also. And, what were the hours, Laura? The latest operating. I don't have it in front of me.
3 to 10, I believe I saw.
Yeah, I think on Fridays, here it is. Fridays and Saturdays would be 11. Every other of the days would be 10.
So Laura, can you also, is this issue for you, or is this an issue for the town attorney's office? What are there special conditions? Obviously, I think there must be on Mario's and LT's.
I can double check. Mario's, I do not believe, has special conditions. To my knowledge, LT doesn't, but I can double check both those properties. Mario's,
Both of them don't stay open very late. I mean, both of them close by 9 or 10 o'clock. So they do that just as a course of business.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking though, because I do remember some discussion for Mario's.
Mario?
I think so,
Yeah.
right, Kevin? Because we had never had a liquor license in town before Mario's, right?
Well, the thing too is when they redid the building, and they had to get variance or approval because they it was complicated when they redid it. So we should just check the file on that to see whether there's any restrictions.
Getting use variance, and that's why I remember looking through the use variance conditions. I can go find it. And then I did send this to you. There is a petition of over 100 signatures in favor, and Mr. Nietzsche made a map of where the people who are in favor that he talked to that signed the petition live, because he was trying to stay very close by within the tax map. So this is his, and he wasn't knocking on doors because he didn't want to scare people with COVID. He was just talking to people in their yards. But this was kind of like the canvassing he did of the neighborhood who were in favor.
Kevin, I saw you put a letter up from Lang's Pharmacy, and I couldn't finish reading it though. It mentioned something about 22 parking spaces, and was he indicating that was sufficient or insufficient?
I believe depends on which value you use. If it's a shopping mall, I think it's per 50 foot, and it's around 1,400 square feet. If it wasn't in a mall, it would be require about 200 square feet per parking spot. And I think Lang's identified spots that are contiguous with his property But what we asked for was a map that actually, shows those, because it, again, it's a little bit of hand waving there. And we don't, and I know the town board, and we don't want to get into a situation where people are arguing over parking. So that's one of the details we're trying to work through, and hopefully we'll have that soon so that you guys will have that for your next meeting also, so you can, take a look at it. We asked for it.
Lang's Pharmacy was in favor of it, or what? Is that correct? Was he's helping out?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's actually leasing the space, I believe, to the applicant.
Okay, I thought so. All right.
And I believe the co-op is also in support, correct?
Yes, and I'll let Laura jump in anytime, but yes, they provided a letter that showed support, but the letter wasn't detailed enough to say that it's okay to park in our parking lot, which we may not get out of the co-op.
Okay.
And of course, the co-op closes at what, 6 or 7?
8 o'clock, I believe.
8, and Lang's closes at, I believe, 5 or 6. So obviously there's going to be open parking spaces from those times until the closing of this restaurant bar.
That's correct, and that's what the applicant, is basically stating also.
All right.
Yeah, the applicant said that people were asking for him to be open at lunch, but he's specifically choosing not to be open at lunch because he doesn't want to create parking problems, either for his neighbors or for his business. And at lunch, the hours are, everybody's open and pretty busy. So he's specifically choosing hours that are complementary to the parking so that there's not as much competition for the parking spaces.
Yeah,
Okay.
so based on that conversation, it may be smart to, at least for the planning board, I'll speak for them, to have some sort of conditions that align with the hours that he's presenting. And if he ever decides to expand those hours, then we'll be able to evaluate whether there's any concerns with parking or any issues that came up. And we could have the opportunity to say no at that point in time if he wanted to expand.
Okay. Anything else on the Knott Street project? And that would bring us to reappointments. How are we doing on that, Laura?
Yeah, so I think the majority of my boards, requesting reappointment. Tina Lee is not requesting reappointment for the CAC. We all gave her a really nice thank you. Yes, just on Wednesday, because she, I think, became president of the co-op, and she has a bunch of other volunteer opportunities. She just has to take take something off of her plate. But she was a really valuable member of the CAC, so we're gonna miss her. But we may already have interest from a couple of people on the CAC, which if I get resumes, I'll send them out to you. But I think the majority of people would still be moving forward. And I guess my question is that, do you guys want to do the reappointments in the end of December or the first meeting in January? Do you want me to just keep working on them? I didn't know what the timing was that you wanted that for. We've done it both ways.
Doesn't matter to me. Does it matter to you, Denise or Yaz?
No, it doesn't matter to me. I think last year, did we do it at the org meeting?
Yeah, last year we did it in January, and I think a couple of years ago we did it in December, like 2 years in a row, and then we switched back to January. So if we switch back to January, I'll just work away and then put the whole list for you guys on January. I wasn't sure.
That's great. I think that's appropriate. I would also request that if there are in fact open seats, we put out a notice to the community.
Yeah.
For resumes. I mean, we've done that with other boards. I think we need to be a little bit more diligent in doing it with these.
Yeah, I mean, I have a waiting list too for some boards, but not CAC. So
sure, I know that's always the one that is tough for us to fill, but it's important. So that would be great.
Okay, so that brings us to the planning board.
So planning board's got the Kelts Farm average density development. Kind of quiet right now, but that's just because it's going through engineering. So next step on that is to finalize the engineering with our TDE and bring it back to planning board with the engineering before anything can happen over there. I've got, I think I'll just share my screen with you guys, maybe really quick. The Shannon Boulevard type subdivision had a lot of meetings with the residents, like working through things as much as we can. I would say, generally speaking, they would still like to see that whole thing remain forest, but without it remaining forest, the point that we're trying to do is just save as many possible trees and save as many trees and retain the character of the forest as much as we possibly can. So right now, this blue green space is what is being conserved and planned to be dedicated to the town of Niskayuna. And up here is the Nature Conservancy southern access to the Leishakill. And down here, I guess, is actually an impromptu parking lot already. And so, and a path. And so there's, I think it's like 1.3 acres or something of open space that would be dedicated to the town through this subdivision. And there's a possibility for us to turn this land over to the Nature Conservancy if we don't want to maintain it or be liable for it, whatever. I think they'd be willing to take it from us. And they're also very willing to start developing. I guess there used to be a southern trail in the Nature Conservancy, and they're willing to start developing that trail and working with us to create more public access to the Leishakill. So that is kind of an exciting thing about this project. Show you on a bigger scale here. This is where we're talking. So like, oops. Like right now, this is Leishakill here. Right now, all the Leishakill trails are up in this part, and this is the main Leishakill stream that runs through it, and you don't really cross it. So we're talking about opening up public access to all of this down here.
Is the Leishakill navigable by kayak or canoe?
I wouldn't think so. You can walk it. At its deepest spot, it's probably like 3 or 4 feet, but a lot of times it's only like, a foot and a half deep.
Right.
You might, if you were, I don't know. I wouldn't do it in high water. If you did it in high water, you might be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Leishakill here too. So, like right here is a pretty steep hill. Some of the trees in this plot of forest, are clearly old growth. It's a steep hill. There isn't any reason to cut them. There's massive oak trees in that open space that would be dedicated to the town. It's really impressive. Very cool. And they're still trying to preserve the historic house down there. This one. They're changing the driveway because like right now this driveway comes out very close and has conflicting traffic movements with Shannon and Route 7 there. So they're moving it so that the driveway to the historic house comes over to Shannon Boulevard, and then they can landscape and create kind of a green buffer, so that this house has, much more presence, I guess, on the road.
How do you access that area where the trail is?
This is and you might even be able to see it better. I don't drive Route 7 enough to really see this, but right now it has a curb cut, which is good because it's very hard to get curb cuts from DOT. So there is already a curb cut. And like Matt and I were out there, and Josh and Clark were out there with Joel, and we went and looked around, and Matt thinks that this used to be a pump station. Or I can't remember, Matt, exactly what you thought that was. And then he thinks that it got abandoned because when Shannon Boulevard got developed, it's really old, didn't need to happen anymore. The whatever it was doing there, the developer took care of when they did the whole subdivision there. But it's already a bit of a parking area, and apparently the police use this area fairly regularly to police speeds on Route 7. So people are kind of familiar with this pullout. But yeah, there's a fairly decent parking spaces here already, and there's already a trail. So Joel has put up like no trespassing signs to just protect property and liability interests, but there's a well-defined trail that goes along the Leishakill here.
So it's pretty used. Is it an actively used trail? It must be if it's well
It's
defined.
an actively used trail. Dart was allowed to be out there on it, and Dart, you said you saw like how many other people out there?
Yeah, it was quite busy for private property.
Wow.
It's a very interesting, it will be a very interesting trail. It's actually really beautiful in there, as Laura has said. And the vista off that steep spot into the Leishakill is quite nice.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. All right. So what's next with that?
Yeah, so so they had to wait for the CAC recommendation, which came on Wednesday. It'll go back to planning board to take a look at, but and double check anything that needs to have engineering. But that's a minor subdivision now, so it would be like just a couple more planning board meetings. Kevin, jump in if you can think of anything else, but and we still have to call for a public hearing, hold the public hearing, and then take final action. But you can't call for the public hearing without the seeker recommendation. So we have that now. So we'd be calling for a public hearing on it. And then theoretically on final action, the developer would be deeding all of that land to the town of Niskuna for acceptance at the town board level.
And Laura, the only other thing was that he talked about putting a split rail fence along the back of the property line to define the trail in the
Yep.
backyards of the residences there to avoid, but when it was done.
Are the neighbors starting to come around a little bit to it?
I mean, none of them, the ones across the street, are just really sad that, they bought the land with the map that they showed you guys. If you hadn't seen it, they bought the land with the map showing that as open space. And it's just really frustrating to them that they had this understanding of what that forest was going to be and it changed.
And where did they get that understanding from? Do you know?
Because it was like that. I mean, there's a recorded subdivision plat showing the open space there, but the developer sold that open space to the Krieger family, to the house that's up on the hill, and then begged the town for forgiveness. And the town didn't necessarily forgive them, but they did allow them to do a land swap. So they sold 5,000 square feet along Shannon Boulevard, and they ended up land swapping that for more open space where that ravine is in the back.
How long ago did that
The town
happen?
wasn't like, oh, it's fine that you sold this, carry on. The town was like, no, you shouldn't have sold this, but we'll make the open space essentially make more sense, because before it was kind of like a random sliver that went along Shannon Boulevard. And then they combined that with the open space that was to the rear of the property. And so, I mean, it's clear, legal. Joel has unrestricted title to it, private property. And I think that they appreciated that he has been willing to work with them as much as possible. They appreciated that the planning board has been out on multiple site visits, and they appreciate that he's trying to save the trees. Do they wish that the town would just buy the whole thing and make it a park? Yes. But I think that, with the legal understanding of what can and can't be done there, and with Joel's willingness to work with them on as much as he is willing to work with them on, not necessarily that he's not going to build the houses, but, keeping the price point of the houses in line with all the homes around, and, being really sensitive where the driveways go, trying to save all the trees. All those things I think have gone a long way to help. I still don't think they love it, but they do appreciate the time and the effort that's been taken to try and address their concerns.
How long ago did the town do that land swap?
91. I'll tell you. You want to see it? Here.
So before that land swap, the neighbors were under the impression that what? I mean, it wasn't dedicated parkland. It wasn't.
This is the original. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, there it is. This is the original one. And it shows this area all along Shannon Boulevard is open space. And do you see how this kind of curves? And then in the final one, which doesn't look like it's showing up on my computer, it basically takes this 5,000 square feet and brings it back here so that this becomes one solid. Show the lines here. It becomes one solid piece. Like, see, it's not curved anymore. Like, they put that 5,000 feet
Right.
in it, and they made this open space bigger.
Okay, but now at some point it became not open space, right? Which is where we're at now.
Right. So this parcel here is legally, privately subdividal. If he wasn't doing a subdivision and he wanted to clear cut it, he would need a building permit, but he could. clear cut all of that if he wanted. It's privately owned. This is Parks District 9 over here. They pay for.
So how did it go from open space to privately owned?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the developer, Clark, I think it was Hodorowski and Century 21, but Clark, if I'm wrong, jump in. Sold this this was a 4-phase subdivision. This is a huge it was an average density development. I know you guys feel like you get a whole lot of public comment, but you should have seen the public comment on this average density development. The file's like this thick. People did not want it. It was extremely controversial, especially because there were townhomes, and at the time, I think townhomes were known to bring in ne'er-do-wells. Clearly not true. So yeah, it's an average density development. It was super controversial, and it was developed in 4 phases. So like, if you can see my cursor, this is the first phase. This is second phase, and they did the townhome phase, and then they were over here connecting into Mohawk. And so the time that it took to build all these phases was a long time. It was 6-7 years. And by the time they got over here, they had sold that open space piece before they had dedicated any of this land to the town, because you weren't going to finalize all of that until the end of the average density development project was done. They had sold that open space to those people, and then realized that they weren't compliant with their phase subdivision plan anymore, and asked the town for forgiveness. And again, the town didn't really forgive them. They required that because they were like, yeah, we accidentally sold it. You can't really accidentally sell it, but they said we sold it, and but we're already way over the open space that's required by town code, so just let it be. And the town said no. It doesn't matter that you're over the open space. Like, this was dedicated open space in the phases, and you have to at least maintain the square footage of open space that was originally approved by the planning board and the town board. And that's why they did that change.
Huh.
Yeah. Makes sense. And I just, I don't want to downplay the concerns. Nobody on that, none of the residences are on the line. They sent you a bunch of letters. It's super frustrating to them, and I don't want to downplay that it is frustrating. It did happen 30 years ago, and he does have a right to the land now. And so I think the things that the planning board is really focusing on is what can we do to mitigate that, being sensitive to the fact that it is very frustrating to them for good reason, and then preserving as much open space and creating as much access for the public to these places as possible.
John, you should have gotten a number of emails about this.
I don't believe I have.
Okay.
I know I've heard from a couple people verbally, but I'll check my email again. I received Gail's emails, but I haven't received much on Shannon Boulevard, surprisingly, because a couple of the neighbors have called me up and expressed some displeasure. But I'll go through my emails again and check.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a subdivision as of right proposal, though, unless there was some legal reason that the planning board, could say no. There's not, when you own private property, you have certain development rights, through New York State and the Constitution. So the planning board does whatever it can to mitigate the public concerns. If the entire thing was on a hill that was more than 10% slope, we might be able to say no. We do look at lot 1 very carefully, but lot 1 isn't even a 10% slope. So there's not a whole lot besides, working with the developer to mitigate the concerns that we can do.
Okay. Any other comments on the Shannon Boulevard matter? What's going on with Maurice's?
Yeah, so these just couple quick ones. Maurice's is changing its location in Mohawk Commons. I think it's moving from over by Bed Bath & Beyond to over by Old Navy. Is that where it's going, Clark? Somewhere else in Mohawk Commons.
Yes. Yep.
So just probably increase its visibility a little. So we're not losing it. It's just moving around, which is fine and cool.
Yeah.
We had a couple of them do that recently, I think. Chase Bank is, oh, I have got that in building packet. And then Anthony Street, at the end of Anthony Street, there's the J-Dog recycling service, and they have been working with Clark on potentially adding a pretty large carport at the end of Anthony Street. It's not residential. Across the street is Jackson Demolition, but we still got to be careful for site plans with large carports and stuff and precedents and everything. So the planning board's going to take a look at that one here soon. Zoning board canceled. We did not, I think, have any cases for December, so we'll get them going again in January. I'm expecting that most of our meetings will still be virtual in January. I'm going to send them out an email today. For grants, the River Road Park construction started. We had a really, really, really talented group of volunteers that worked a couple Saturdays ago on installing silt fence and taking down fencing and doing a whole lot of stuff because it was so important to them, the softball people, to try and get this field in the fall so that it would have sat and be ready to play in the spring. And so they are out there. There's not good soil out there. That's probably not a surprise to anyone. It's the reason that the reason that this project is happening. And so there's disputed work right now on soils. The engineers are trying to work back and forth with the contractor on it. I'm trying to keep everybody in the loop on it. But I think the intent is still to try to finish by the end of this year if they can. So the engineers have been out there. I was going to try and get out there today if I can to see what they can do. I know they wanted to try and pour concrete today or yesterday. Does anybody have any questions on River Road? Aqueduct Park, the docks are closed up for the winter. I think I've talked to you guys about this a couple times now at this meeting, but due to COVID and a couple of contractual obligations, the docks weren't able to be put in this fall. And so we don't want to just have them delivered and not installed. It's not a good idea. So they're going to install them in the winter. They're going to install them in the spring. They've closed everything out for the winter over there. The water fountain for the bathrooms is back ordered, so they'll probably have to install the water fountain on the outside of the bathrooms in the spring as well. The bathrooms could probably theoretically be opened at any given time. I'm not sure that there's a high demand or use for them right now. And, without the contract being fully finalized, I guess I'm not in a big rush to open the bathrooms. I know that we will need them in early spring. If anybody wants to, let me know how they feel, but, it sort of saves vandalism and maintenance costs and stuff. If we want to sort of open them when we're opening up everything that's happening in the park in the spring, I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't want to build something and then just have it sit there, but typically we close our bathrooms down in the winter. So without like a full reason that I know of to keep these guys open all winter long, I would say that we should just probably plan for opening the bathrooms in the spring.
Makes sense.
The critical pedestrian grant I had attached to our packet in November, the end of October for the November meeting, the pedestrian counts that the Complete Streets did for the St. Joseph's crossing and for the Knott Street crossing. And they're high. We talked about that before. They're good. And the counts that we did on Knott Street was during an incredibly rainy day. and there was still a ton of people crossing where we want to put a crosswalk with buttons. So we sent all those to the county, and our next step is to meet with them again on that data that they asked us for. And then Upper Union Street, we had tentatively had a resolution for approval of the Upper Union Street contract at the last meeting, but the bids came in too high, and there wasn't a lot that we could kind of negotiate on those bids, and we only had 2 bids. So what I talked about with the engineers is we're going to reduce the scope probably of the sidewalks potentially, and then rebid that in January or February and try and get those costs to come down. Any questions on any of those?
Were the bids way over what we expected?
Yeah, we had it so that we had a construction estimate bid of $100,000, and the lowest one was $178,000.
All right. Thank you.
And you guys are already aware of this. Like, it seems to be happening on every single one of. It's just construction costs just seem to be higher than
Laura,
prepared for.
Uh,
Yes,
hi.
Matt?
this is Esma Thai. So how do we make up the rest of the funds?
On this one, I'm not even trying. We're gonna take stuff out of the grant and then rebid it again and try and have it come in at 100.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 9,
9 is the complete streets. So I just leave this on to make myself look bad. We still haven't released the survey to the residents. It's getting there, and I think it's really important. And I've got a complete streets meeting next Friday, so hopefully we can finalize with them what we want to put in the survey and get that out to residents. And it can just kind of be a combination of everything that we've talked about, trying to get feedback from people on. And then as an update, the complete streets, they put the temporary chicanes on Regent Street. They're working on a memo to the town board summarizing the comments that they got from people. I think that the majority of the people who took the survey liked the chicanes, and there was a lot of positive feedback from people who were driving through. But we did note that there was a fair number of people who were directly adjacent to the chicanes that did not like them, which is good feedback too. So, I mean, if people driving through are like, yay, this slows everybody down, but, you know, like, right, the people who are living with the chicanes don't really like them, something to figure out. So we're going to do a memo to the town board about that and get some feedback to you guys on that. But I did want to note that I was just randomly taking the CDR PC training. Well, not randomly. I get credit for it for my certifications, but they were actually using Niskayuna as a case study. Like CDRPC continues to promote Niskayuna as one of the premier kind of complete streets communities in the Capital District region. And they were even using our demonstration project for the chicanes, to show other places on how they could do it and what it looked like, and some of the feedback that we had already gotten. So I know that sometimes it's a little bit hard to get these things going and get them out there. And we did take it down early, but it makes a difference. And even if people don't like chicanes, and we never put them out there, because I think that we were thinking maybe the road was too narrow for chicanes and there's something else out there that might work better. But people really appreciated us trying to find ways to slow down the car. So like, we'll take what the comments are and get a report to the town board and let you guys know where we kind of land on that and have some more discussion on it. But it was a good learning opportunity, and it's definitely being watched.
excellent. Well, thank you.
So, and tree council's main focus right now is the master plan. We awarded a contract on that, I think, the beginning of this year, if not very end of last year. And we understand what's going on with the budget, so we're trying to make sure that that master plan is built and closed out by the end of 2020 if we can. So they're working really hard on that right now. Conservation Advisory Council's Lomo initiative for Blandic Park. We had those 2 meetings with the adjacent residents on Catherine Woods and River Hill, and got a lot of really good feedback. I think the 2 main things that people wanted to see out there for biodiversity Lomo initiative would be to add wildflowers to the grass, so there wasn't just long grass. They wanted it to look nicer with color. And then there was a disc golf hole kind of where we had originally set aside for being Lomo, so we were probably going to shrink the area that would be not mowed as often so that it's not going to interfere with that golf hole. And then the other big thing that people wanted to make sure would be done, which was already decided it would be was to keep it mowed between like the split rail fence on that curve and the road. And so all those things I think are pretty easy to do. Right now the CAC is working on seeing if we can find wildflower seeds and wildflower plugs, and then what the signage would look like out there for that initiative. So that's good. And then the pesticide-free lawn initiative, working on purchasing the signs by the end of December. I showed you guys those, I think, a couple other meetings, and then working on monthly or quarterly emails to people on what are good lawn tips to reduce using pesticides and fertilizers and making your lawn healthier. So if there's come out in a timely way, just good interaction with people on good information for maintaining their lawns. And then the last thing that CAC talked about kind of for a long time, and Dart can jump in here at any time, is, you know, I know the town board wasn't able to fund the natural resources inventory for 2021, and we talked about potentially using some interns, but the Conservation Advisory Council is willing to take this on as well in conjunction with a, you know, whatever other type of help we can get for it. It fits nicely into the Conservation Advisory Council's overall scope, and they want to start trying to get reports to you on natural resources and open space. And so that's obviously the first step, is to do an inventory so they can do that. So they want to try and get these other two initiatives to a place where they can, you know, start living and growing and working, and then they would take on the natural resources one in 2021.
No, I think you summarized it well, Laura. In our January meeting, we're going to try to work to define that scope better of what that would entail. But I think there was a fair amount of support on the committee to do this.
There was. So that should help. Climate Smart Communities Task Force, we're working on a 2020 summary of everything that they submitted to be a climate smart community. And then the one that they had picked to pursue in 2021 is the greenhouse gas emission inventory. That estimate was $5,000, and I don't think that was put in the budget either. So I know that they still want to try, and we'll do the best that we can on this one, and see if we can get that to work in 2021 as well.
All right.
Clark, do you want to take over Architectural Review Board?
Okay, sure. Just quickly, the ARB is working on providing feedback on 7 projects currently. 2 of those were specifically, the planning board specifically put a condition in the site application for site plan resolution to require the ARB to look at them and approve the facade upgrades. That was 2804 Aqueduct Road, the Mattia construction project. The ARB has reviewed that during 2 calls, and they've given their approval. That project went very, very well. The second recommendation from the planning board is for 2207, 2209 Knott Street, the proposed restaurant. They've had one meeting with the applicant on that, and we have another meeting scheduled. There's a couple other projects going on, such as the former Aqueduct Animal Hospital, that they'll be working with the applicant on that project to give it a more residential look as that transitions from the animal hospital to a 6-unit apartment complex. The next year.
Has that been purchased, Clark? I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
No, it has not. I don't believe it's actually been purchased yet, but it.
Yeah, I think it's closing within like a week or 2.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the intention is to make that into, you said, a 6-unit apartment?
6-unit apartment. There's currently 3 units upstairs, and he would be converting the first floor to 3 additional apartment units.
Okay. So then he wouldn't be expanding that building at all? There's no talk of that, or?
No, he's actually removing 2 or 3 buildings in the backyard. Some of the kennels, he would be removing those and altering his parking to make it look a little bit more residential. So we're hoping the ARB can help him make the building look a little more residential as well. So,
Excellent.
So that'll be a great project for them. Their next meeting is Wednesday the 9th, and we're working on some materials to get a page on the town website for the ARB, similar to the planning board, zoning board, and other town boards.
And Clark, with the restaurant on Knott Street, that would just be facade stuff, right? You can't really do any changes to that building, can you?
No, we had a really good discussion about breaking up just the flatness of the facade, and they recommended some awnings, and it's a bit of a balance between the cost of some of those recommendations and improving the look. So the applicant is open to working with the ARB on that.
Thank you.
Sure. That's it, Laura.
Thanks, Clark. So the building department, we had this on the agenda last time, but we didn't really have a chance to discuss a whole lot. We want to try and change our fees to align with surrounding communities. In some cases, they may be a little low. So we're going to be updating our fees to be more, more compatible with the general area and also be more reflective, to the work that we do. And then we had also talked about potentially doing some kind of a vacant home registration code with fees. I know, Denise, like zombie homes are kind of a thing that you like to, try really hard for us to stay on and, get a hold of them and get them turned over to somebody who's making them better as quickly as possible. It's more work for us, and I'm not 100% sure exactly how it would work, but there are codes that Ken found. He was sending some stuff over to Ismat, maybe even over in like Clifton Park or Half Moon, where once a home is vacant, they have to register with the town. And I mean, like the first 6 months or a year that it's vacant, it's like $200. But, as it goes into 3 or 4 years of being vacant, the fees, double or get higher. And so you can get up to like, I think it's Clifton, Saratoga, or there's a couple communities around here that have it where if the home has been vacant for 2 or 3 years, they're paying like, $2,000 in vacant registration fees, which is just an incentive for them to get rid of the home and get it out to somebody who can live in it and make it nicer again.
Okay, just to say one quick thing, this was included in the 2021 budget, adopted budget. So
Yeah.
Laura, let's coordinate about, the kind of fee and the whole plan. So let's talk about it offline.
Yeah. Did anybody have any questions on those two? Okay. And then I started to say that during planning, and then I was like, this is sort of a building. Chase Bank is very close to opening in Mohawk Commons. If anybody hasn't a chance to drive down there and look at it, go take a look at it. They took the old Ruby Tuesdays building down, put a brand new Chase Bank building down there. And they're trying to open in December if they can.
Boy, they took the Ruby Tuesday building down?
Right down. It's
I
gone.
didn't even know that. How that must have happened quick.
Yeah, this was not a remodel. It was a
Holy
full demolition and then new build.
Huh.
It's not even in the same place. They put the Chase Bank building slightly closer to the road and put the parking behind it. The Ruby Tuesdays had parking all around it. This building has green space between it and the entranceway into Mohawk Commons. And it added a fair amount of green space to Mohawk Commons, which the planning board tried really hard to do that when they were reviewing it because there's not a lot of green space down there. So any chance they can get to add a little green, they did. Looks nice. And then I thought you might like to know this, John. I think we only have one, but we did get a chicken permit submitted.
Excellent. How does it look?
I haven't seen it yet.
All right.
I think it has to be denied, actually, but for accessory structures. But we did get one, and we still have a lot of interest from people in them. They're still answering questions on them. I know people have them in their home and they're working on them. So
I saw a breakdown of one of our residents. Kind of gave like a scoreboard of how to get the permit.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if it was his name, Wally. I can't think of his name now, but
Matt Wall.
Yes, Matt Wall. Yeah,
He's
like
the one
a
that submitted.
step-by-step process. What did you think of that? Did you get a chance to look at it?
I did not get a chance to look at it.
All right. Maybe I'll forward it to you so you have it on top of your thing. It seemed like I didn't think it was that involved, but he kind of gives a good step-by-step process on what to do and how to do it and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an involved permit. An accessory structure permit is fairly involved in this unit anyway, because you need to put the distances to lot lines and how many existing accessory structures you have.
So is this an accessory structure? I think
yes,
that was one
this
of the
is
questions.
considered. Yes, yep. And we talked about that because that's how we manage the setbacks. And then it has the additional requirement to be not too close to your neighbor's home, stuff like that. So it's just it isn't an I want chickens permit to the building department and then you can go have chickens. It's definitely, we're making sure that we're trying to mitigate all of the concerns from neighboring residences to try and deal with any of the nuisance elements. So yeah, it's a fairly involved permit.
Excellent. All right.
And the planning, so really the engineering department is heading up our updates to the hazard mitigation plan with Schenectady County. But I saw Mike Stevens pop on to our call for a second. Mike Stevens and me and Jessica and Josh have been working with the county on updates to their hazard mitigation plan. They're moving it to a new platform. It's all online, so hopefully it'll be a little more accessible to the public or anybody who wants to take a look at it. And they have a fairly aggressive timeline on that. I just got a bunch of emails that they want to do another webinar, I think, on Monday. So it's taking some time. There's a CDRPC training, which I mentioned, where Niskuna was a case study on complete streets. And this is a weekly Wednesday morning training. It's $10 for a ticket, and you can see the old trainings and watch the new trainings, which to me is a fantastic deal. Like, you'll end up with like 8 or 10 hours of training. And it's really relevant to a lot of people. Like, there's an ethics one next week. This week was complete streets. There's been aging in place one. There's been, what COVID means to local government. There's all kinds of stuff on there that's really great. So if anybody's interested in that training, just email me. I'll send you how it works. It's really good. I recommend it for anybody. And then I actually haven't talked to the building inspectors about Ace Hardware in a little while. They've gone back and forth with us on a couple things, propane tanks and things. But my understanding is they're still trying to open in mid-December. So potentially you've got 2 big businesses opening up in Niskuna in December, which would be really exciting. And then I have on here for legal, Paul Briggs on the Vincenzo deed restrictions. I've been getting a ton of emails that I've been forwarding to you. I really want to get those finalized, and then just enforcement, if you guys had to want to talk about anything legal.
I'm still, it looks like Lou, Lisi, and I are working out the Vincenzo deed restrictions, so that should be resolved shortly.
Okay, did he call you when he told me he was going to call you?
Yes.
Good. Awesome.
And Laura, on the enforcement, I haven't wanted to file anything in the court because it will restart all of the notice requirements, especially seeing that the court's closed right now and it's online. So
yeah, I know that we're behind on enforcement, and I do understand that. And the government, the governor, as far as evictions and stuff, I think, and you mentioned this to me before, put out something to the building department to be the least stringent in enforcement in times like these right now, which is we get. But on the enforcement side, 802 Oregon is one of those ones that has been outstanding. I think they were up to something like $6,000 renewal fees for their building permits. And then the property owner passed away. But it did change hands. And so our building inspector and Linda just sent a letter to the new owner. So we may not need enforcement on that one. We may just be able to work with the new owner and get that one finalized. And if anybody has had a chance to drive by 2 Cornelius Drive, by the way, speaking of zombie homes that are coming back to life, it's amazing. Like, the guy who has been doing all that work just reached out to Tom because he needs to renew his building permit. He's been working on it for over a year, and it looks beautiful.
I'll have to take a peek. Oh, Laura, back up to Ace Hardware.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one in the Morgan Stanley building on Balltown?
Yeah, yep.
So they got their ingress situations all worked out?
Yeah, yep, they did. The only thing that will happen with Ace Hardware opening is that in the original plans that are approved by the planning board, and they're not pulling this back, is that they're putting a greenhouse on the front so that it looks more like an Ace Hardware building, and people can see that, there's plants and it's an Ace Hardware building. And because of COVID, I guess, there's some issue with the type of glass that gets coated for commercial greenhouses. It's way back ordered. So they do still want to open in December, but they're going to have to add the greenhouse on probably in spring to summer. So what we talked about is just separating the greenhouse out into a separate permit so that it can't be forgotten, and it is part of the planning board process. So it still has to be in the queue of what they need to do before they're finalized to keep them in compliance with their planning board approval. But when it opens, you probably won't see the greenhouse on the front. That's going to be a couple months down because the glass is, I guess you can't get wood and you can't get glass. There's a couple other weird things you can't get right now. Water fountains.
there's that much space in front of the building and the sidewalk?
Yes, there's a lot of space there, but they actually did get an area variance because of average setback from the zoning board to add the greenhouse.
All right, thank you.
I think that's it. Is that no? Do I have one more thing? Oh, Dennis, you can jump in here. I talked to Matt Wall for a long time about the Rosendale Common School. And Dennis has said this a couple times. He was very busy with the census, but he does want to start really working with us on that in January, and just wanted to make sure that there was a lot of support from the town board to do so. And I said, yeah, I definitely think you have the support. And what we were talking about was probably the first thing to do would be a resolution, where the town board kind of recognizes the formation of a Friends of the Grange, and figures out, what our relationship would be with them. And I did want to note that he had noted that there was a window out at the Grange, and I called Ray, and Ray had already fixed it. So they're out there and trying to help with the Grange, so should be fixed.
All right.
I don't have much to add to that, Laura. I did get an email from Matt earlier this week, which basically said the same thing. He talked to you about a resolution of approval or support from the town. He's going to work on revising his base document that he sent out several months ago now. And hopefully we're going to be able to move forward in the new year and get something going with the school.
Thanks, Dennis. That's all I have, John.
Okay, very well. That being said, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, are there any opposed? And we are adjourned. Hope you all have a nice weekend.
Yeah, thank you. See you all.
Yeah, thank you.